Yes, good morning, everyone. I welcome us to our monthly meetup, Microsoft Fabric community, where we meet every third Saturdays. I believe everybody can hear me. So, these are our monthly meetup for those that are joining for the first time. It's a community where we learn Microsoft Fabric together, and we, we meet every month. We meet every month. Please let's make sure that we are muted. Uh, we meet every month to talk about Microsoft Fabric, to get hands-on, to learn one or two. And we also support each other for the exam. So if you are joining for the first time, you are welcome. For those that have always been coming, we appreciate you. And today is another edition of our monthly meetup where we are going to be talking about Git integration with Microsoft Fabric. And we have our facilitator already on seat. That's the person of Fatai Soni, who is the Vice President of Data Advocacy from Reliance Info System. So Reliance Info System is Microsoft partner. No other person is more qualified, apart from the fact that Fatai works with a global organization. Is also a very qualified person himself. I remember when people like me started out, these are people that we look up to. When I was starting out, there was already a thought leader as far as data is concerned. So really appreciate you for honoring our invite today, Atai. We are grateful. And our topic today is essentially Git integration with Microsoft Fabric. So Bata will be doing justice to that topic, and Git integration with Microsoft Fabric is just source control. And source control is you trying to have a sort of control over the various versions of your Fabric item. Oh, you build this PySpark code, you write this SQL script, or you even build this report, and then maybe you want to revert back to the previous version. How do you do it? How should you do it? What's the best practice that is available? So let me not jump the gun. Patai is best suited to take this topic, and I'm very sure he's well prepared for it. Even from the start, I can already feel the heat of today's session. So uh, I welcome Fatai to come on board, and then you can have the floor. Fatai, over to you.
Okay. Uh, Thank you very much. Let me turn on my camera. Good morning. I'm calling from Nigeria. So good morning, everyone. And also, if you are not in my time zone, then good, whatever time zone you are. Um, it's excuse me. It's a pleasure to be here today. I Microsoft Fabric is here to stay, right? And I know that us as a community, we have invested a lot in trying to learn together, trying to get better, and trying to also keep the flag flying as far as Microsoft Fabric is concerned in I think Nigeria, and let's even say by extension West Africa, or Africa as it is, right? And I remember when we used to have the physical meetup, and now we've moved to virtual. And so, yeah, it's a pleasure that we are all here and we are all learning together. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. Please confirm if you can give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you can see my screen. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Francis. Also, thank you, Francis, for the invitation. So today, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Today, today's session, I planned it to be very, very hands-on. So if you can follow along, or if you have your own uh, ULIC device, or you please be ready to follow along. But however, if you cannot follow along, you can always do that at the end of the class. So today we want to talk about Git integration with Microsoft Fabric. Okay. Now, for a lot of us, we have an understanding or maybe basic understanding of this. Some of us we've worked with this. Some of us have played with this, or some of us, I mean, we understand at the very fundamental level what this is, right? And we just want to like build something together and just sort of like we'll learn together how this works. Okay. So let's get right into it. We don't have lots of time, so let's just get into business. Again, my name is Fatai Sani. For those who don't know me, Francis already did justice to that introduction. I am a data advocate. I'm a data analyst. I'm an analytics engineer, and I happen to also be a Microsoft certified trainer. So I train organizations and also individuals on leveraging data for informed decision making. I'm also a Microsoft certified data analyst or Microsoft certified fabric analyst, as the case may be, or analytics engineer. Um, I happen to be the vice president data advocacy at Reliance Info System. I have some 8 years of experience working um, with data, and presently in my current role, I'm working IT consulting for a global firm called Reliance Info System, where we help customers sort of like guide them through their data transformation journey, irrespective of whatever stage a customer is, whether we're just trying to figure out data collection, data aggregation, or they are pretty much advanced and they have data warehousing, they want to do advanced analytics. We just sort of help uh, customers across all of those broad spectrum. Personally, I also mentor individuals and I coach them, just like Francis said. I'm a thought leader within the data ecosystem. So let's get enough of the self accolades. Let's get into um, where the conversation today lies. I mean, I'm going to go from the known to the unknown. So let's start like this. I don't know if we've all been here where we we were working with files, right? Especially, I'll start from Power BI. I'll start from Power BI point of, because I mean that's where pretty much a lot of us started from, right? Where you have, you want to do version control, you're working on different versions. So you have version 1, version 2, version 3. You have a copy of a version and a copy of a copy of another version. I mean, I don't know if we've all been here. And is it only me, or this is something that is let me look at the chat. Okay, so Francis said he's been here. So you're working with say Power BI file, or even within Microsoft Fabric, and you want to share files, you want to keep updated, or you're collaborating with others, right? And you want to keep track of those changes. You find yourself saving multiple files and also saving a copy of a copy of a copy, right? And this isn't the best way to work. Especially because in the past, or before as we know it, okay, don't let me get there. Let me ask the next question, which is, for those of us that have worked with Power BI, right? How do you handle collaborating with others? So let's say you have a line manager, you're building BI reports, and you want to keep there may be changes, there are revisions before that document or that file goes live. How do we work with things like this in an enterprise organization or in any organization? I mean, maybe any person can come off mute and share. How do you relate? How do you work um, with versions of files, revisions, and so on and so forth? How do we do this? We can earlier type in the chat. You can come off mute and maybe share. I plan to make this session interactive if possible. I know there were some tricks in the past, but I mean, I just want to have a general understanding of Currently, let's even start from Power BI. Let's before we even get deep into Fabric. So you work with Power BI file. You have others that want to collaborate with you. So let's say you are working on one part of the documents, other people are supposed to be working on that part, or you are sending it to your for review to your line manager and such. How have you been? How do you work with that?
I think for me, before Git integration came, sometimes I ask the person that I want to make any update or add any new feature to download the one from the service and use it.
Okay.
Or probably
Yes.
I send the latest version of the PBIX file to
To
the
yes.
person. Then the person just
Yes.
publish and override the existing one. But we have to be in
Exactly.
constant communication and say that, okay, guy, I've published
Yes.
this and this, so
To
that you
know
won't
because you
revert
cannot
back.
work on. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how we do it. So I will just have to make sure that I've published though. Don't go and do this and that. So, and sometimes you publish, another person will come and override what you published, and then you'll be like, oh, I've implemented this thing. Then the end user is calling you that, but I cannot see
Yeah.
it. Then you later
Yeah.
find out that somebody that you are working together on it has already published and
Yeah.
probably override it with some other feature that is not
Something
factoring in
else.
what you have done.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's exactly what this used to be. I mean, it used to be a nightmare. So you publish some documents, or so you have to, if you want to do the Power BI service thing. So let's say you publish, you ask the person, okay, download the latest PBIX file. Then while this person is working on it, you cannot work on it. You have to wait till, I mean, they finish theirs, they publish, then you download them. Because once you publish, you cannot have that interaction between that version. In some other way, some other people used to do it is they kind of put it in, especially for people that want to track different versions or you want to roll back to a previous version, right? So they put it in SharePoint, right? Maybe yeah, something like SharePoint, and they have a latest copy, and then maybe after some time they go back. So let's say want to roll back to, let's say, version 5 or version 6. So they go back and um, pull that version. Or, I mean, all of these are workarounds. They are really not uh, the ideal way of doing it, and that's because primarily Power BI files before now used to be blob. I mean, I'm talking pre-Fabric right now. They used to be blob files, so that versioning used to be very difficult, and that's because you cannot insert or you cannot remove maybe lines of from maybe a Power BI report or maybe a semantic model or a data flow and so on and so forth. They were just blob files, right? So it was pretty much difficult to do that. So it's like, think of maybe a blob files that maybe think of maybe like a video data or a music data, and you want to like code your way into like inserting a line into the music or removing a line from the music. You can almost tell that that's not going to be seamless or something you can do with Git, right? So there comes now the Microsoft support for Git integration. So currently, Microsoft now supports version control, or yes, Microsoft now supports source control and version control, and has integration with GitHub and Azure DevOps. So what does this mean? What this means now is that you can now uh, do version control. You can do version control, source control from Microsoft Fabric across most of the Microsoft Fabric workloads, from Power BI files to semantic model to pipelines to data flow to data flow to Spark to notebooks and so on and so forth. Microsoft Fabric now supports all of this. So now there is the integration with GitHub and Azure DevOps. So right, the both options are supported. And I think also GitHub Enterprise is also supported. And I'm going to, of course, show one of these. But now, before we dive into the deep end, I mean, we just do like a crash course. I'm not promising I'm going to teach you all the basics of Git and what is Git, but let's quickly just run through like a basic understanding of what exactly is Git, what is GitHub, what is DevOps, right? So Git in itself is an open source distributed version system, a version control system that is designed for speed and efficiency. So it's an open source. Git itself is open source, and it's a distributed version control system that was basically designed for speed and efficiency. And it allows you to see the changes you make to your code, as well as the changes others make to their code, and easily revert and switch between them, right? So when you make changes to a particular code, you can roll back, you can maintain the current version, and if when others also make changes to their code, you can also see that and interact or intuitively interact with it and see exactly what changes were made, and sort of like either to merge that to your own changes or to discard them, as the case may be. However, it's worthy to mention that Git in itself is not GitHub, right? For it's of course can be easily confused, right? Git itself is the open source distributed version control system, while Git. So if we say Git is not GitHub, so what then is GitHub? All right. So GitHub in itself, or github.com, is now a website that hosts Git repositories on a remote server. All right. So GitHub is just it's a website that allows you to host these Git repositories, right? Allows you to host them on their on a remote server. So hosting repository on GitHub facilitates the sharing of code bases among teams by providing maybe a graphical user interface to easily fork and also clone repos to a local machine. So Git, I mean, I hope we get your understanding now. Git in itself is the open source version control system, while GitHub, on the other hand, is the website that allows you to host these Git repositories on their remote server. Okay, now GitHub is not the only software or website that allows you. There are other variants. There is the Azure DevOps, for example, and I think there are also some other ones that, forgive me, I may not be able to mention at this time. Okay, now let's move on. I hope that that's understood. Can I get thumbs up or understood in the chat if that's understood, or do I need any clarification to um yes, okay, thank you for that. It's important that we understand this concept because it can very well change the way we work with Microsoft Fabric or Power BI files in our organization. We'll be making more reference to Power BI in this uh, today's session, because for most of us in our organization, that is what we can easily apply, right? In our organization, most organizations, forgive me for my privileged knowledge, a lot of organizations have not really implemented Microsoft Fabric at that scale, right? So the current application that we can all easily apply, right, is from the Power. So I will be making more reference to that, but this is not to say anything I say for Power BI is ditto for all the other Microsoft Fabric workloads. Okay, so now moving on. So now, before now, I mentioned that Francis also seconded me on that um, the posting or hosting or publishing of reports to the service, pulling it down, and also trying to manually track all of that. Most of that is like that because there is no single way to merge changes, all right, that two people make within a single Power BI file. That's because, like I said, Power BI was a blob file, right? So, and then Microsoft rethought the old, because Power BI is now going to be a part of Fabric and version control, because now we're going into, when people used to say, before people used to say a Power BI developer, most people just used to think, what exactly is development in Microsoft? You're just building reports, bro. But now this is now the true version of development, right? Because now you can beat your chest and call yourself a developer, because most of all the things that developers do, from working with code bases to understanding version control, to building projects end to end and managing it, is what that whole developer experience is now present in Microsoft Fabric and also in Power BI, and that's why this can be a game changer. Uh, this can this can be a game changer for a lot of us. Now, Microsoft Fabric or Power BI in particular moved from the blob file to what we call Microsoft introduced the Power BI desktop project, which is PBIP, that allows you to now do version or source control and version control within the Power BI file or Power BI desktop. What that tells you is that you see that report that you save right now, that Power BI report, you can now codify all of the experience, right, within that report. So it is your semantic model. You can add, in Power BI, you can only also make changes and so on within the Power BI desktop or within the Fabric environment. Now, you can do like a whole development without even opening or interacting with the Power BI desktop or Fabric, Power BI file within Microsoft Fabric, which means that you can write to the semantic model, you can make changes to the data model, you can make changes to the theme, to the colors, to the size of your report, to your visual. You can add visual, you can edit visual, and so on and so forth, without necessarily interacting with the Power BI report, right? So the Power BI desktop project of the PBIP now is what allows you to do text editor support, which means that you can use the text editor to make changes to a Power BI file. You can programmatically generate and edit items definitions. You can do source control. I can also do continuous integration and continuous deployment within Power BI and within Microsoft Fabric. Okay, so what are some of the supported items for Git integration for Microsoft Fabric? I mentioned you can now iterate over data pipelines, you can do lake houses, you can do notebooks, you can do paginated reports, you can do reports. Our demo today will be primarily focused on the reporting, right? Again, you would see that it should be focused on reports and semantic models, right? You can do Spark job definition, you can do Spark environment, you can also do data warehouses, right? So all of these, even though they are still in preview, but there's now support for all of this within Microsoft Fabric, and you can now do Git integration with them. Now, for this, our demo today, what are we going to need, right? We're going to need, you're going to need a GitHub account, right? So I would imagine that I would expect that everyone on the course should have a GitHub account. You're going to need a Fabric capacity, that a Fabric trial capacity, or a paid Fabric capacity, or you need a Power BI premium, whether a premium per user license or premium per capacity license. That's because Git integration and source control, it's not a pro workload within Microsoft Fabric. And also, finally, you are going to now need to install Git, to download and install Git on your local PC for you to be able to use that. All right. So these are the prerequisites, and we'll walk through them one by one as we proceed. Now, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Right now, what are we going to be doing today? Let me give you a brief overview. So let's assume as an organization, the name of our organization is called Van Hasdel, right? And Van Hasdel they want to improve their develop. Oh, by the way, dark mode is available now in Power BI, right? I saw Francis drop that in the chat. Now developers used to think they are cool because they work in dark mode, right? So now, Francis, this is another way for us to call ourselves, for you to call yourself a developer, because now you can work in dark mode and it just makes you feel better about yourself, that, oh yes, now you're a developer. There's just that thing that if you work in light mode, you can't really call yourself a developer. So that's another way for you to say, okay, yeah, you're a developer. You have dark mode, right? So today we're going to be working for Van Hasdel, and we're going to see how we can use Git integration to improve the developer experience and also do source and version control for a particular Power BI report. So this report is currently on my PC, right? And we are going to see how from my PC we can integrate this report to GitHub, right? And we can also do that integration to Microsoft Fabric, and we can make changes on any of these three platform, and all of these are going to sync, right? The changes I make on my local PC is going to be merged to GitHub, and it's also going to be pulled from Microsoft Fabric, and that is a three-way, right? It can go from local PC to GitHub to Fabric. It can come back from Fabric to GitHub and to also my PC. So we're going to do that three-way triage today. All right. I hope we're excited. Please, if you're excited, let me see some thumbs up, right? Okay, so this is what we are going to be doing today. So we have this report. It's just a simple two-page report, all right, that basically has some visuals that I've put together for this particular demo. I'm not going to be sending this file, so you can use any Power BI. You can use any Power BI reports that you have, all right, that you know that you have access to the data sources as well. Because if you don't, one caveat is that if you don't, if you are not able to refresh your report in Power BI, or maybe the source, the link to the source is broken, right? You'll be able to do all of this in Git Integrator, but when you get to the Microsoft Fabric, you will not be able to refresh your semantic model. You have the report definitions there, but you'll not be able to refresh your definition or your semantic model. So be sure that you have the also access to the data sources that was used to build this report. So please feel free to use any report you have. Now, let's get started. What's the first thing we need to do, right? We can do any one first, but let me just show what we need to do. Okay, so the very first thing is, let me start with our Fabric account. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to come here. All right, so I'm going to start a new workspace. And I'm going to call this workspace new workspace. Yeah, why is new workspace not workspace? One moment, please. My internet was not show me shaking today. In the meantime, if there's any question from what I've covered so far, please feel free to drop it in the chat before we proceed and before we move ahead. One moment.
All right, thank you, Patai. I think this session is very eye-opening. When you think that you already know something, but you are coming from the perspective of where you are coming from, where we are,
Yeah.
and where we are heading to. So thank you so much. I think people here are all experts. Nobody has any question to ask Patai. So,
let me see.
don't worry, the
So if you
internet
have
can be a bit frustrating. Just take your time.
yeah. You know, when that moment where you've worked on something, it worked, right? But when it's time to demo it and
To
present,
present.
then you now start seeing the the
The
okay.
beans you
So
cooked.
so let's see. This is the same internet I'm using to speak, and I'm sure that you all can hear me and see me, right?
Loud
So
and
now
clear.
it's time to load. It's time to load Fabric environment and Fabric uses to load. Okay, let me see. Do I need to restart my browser? Sorry, let me see if I can access it from another browser. Apologies.
So while Batai is doing that, I just want to share good news that two people have mentioned that they passed their Fabric exam this morning. So we are still waiting for others to write theirs. We prepared about 15 persons for the exam. So, and these are part of our preparation session. So I'm sure that person that wrote the exam this morning were faced with question around Git integration. And I'm sure that this will be a lot more helpful. And now there is even new exam in town, that's DP 700, and for that, definitely Git integration is going to be a huge part of it. So the record is also going to be available after now that you can always go back to and learn Git integration as a whole. Okay, I think we have a question from Steven. Let me see if I can pick the question. Why do we need to create a new workspace when you have a report already? So, Batai, do you want to answer this question, or I should go ahead and? Okay, let me allow Fatai to fix his internet. Let me just address that. So basically, when you have a report already, now there is two things I would like to explain to make this question a bit lot clearer. There is reports and there is dashboard. So whatever you build in your Power BI desktop is a report, and it has to be published into a workspace, either an existing workspace or a new workspace. So once your report is done, for the sake of collaboration across your organization, across the enterprise, you then need to publish it. Where you are working on your desktop is not a workspace, it's a local environment. Your workspace is the cloud environment where anybody from anywhere with internet and any device can then access whatever you have prepared. It's like you make your food available in the kitchen, but you've not yet pushed that food out to the dining where people get to uh, have a taste of the meal that you prepared. So you need to publish your report unless you are not using Power BI service for collaboration. So that's why after you create a new report in your desktop, you then need to go into the internet or into the cloud environment and publish that into it so that everybody can access your report, or who you give us access to can then access your report. So I think I have another question in the chat. Suppose I make changes to my report on Power BI desktop and replace it with the one integrated to Git. What will happen to GitHub? Suppose I make changes to my report on Power BI desktop and replace it with the one integrated to GitHub. I'm not so sure this question is clear. Unless you are making you are cloning your report from GitHub. So if you clone your report from GitHub, the one in the cloud, then you have the version in the cloud, and then you can use your Power BI desktop to continue working on it. So I think Patai is back now. Maybe you can put more clarity to
Yes.
that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Francis. Yeah, sorry, I had to go fix my I had to go fix my internet.
Not a
So the
problem.
question around, yeah, when if I made suppose I make changes to my report on the Power BI desktop and replace it with the one integrated to GitHub, what will happen to GitHub? I'm not sure I fully understand that question. Hopefully I can answer it or you can get clarity as I proceed. Um, Stephen said, I have a question. Why do we need to create a new workspace when you have a report already? So we are taking this as a new deployment, right? We're starting from scratch, right? And we're going from with the fabric to we're going from Power BI or something to that we are deploying in a fabric workspace. Okay, so we're going to call this let me create a workspace. I'm going to call this a fabric Saturday workspace. Okay. And of course, this has to be remember, it has to be a premium per user or a capacity license. If you put it in pro, you will not be able to do Git integration with this particular workspace. So I'm going to create that. All right. So I have this. So having this um, diamond icon here is telling us that this is a premium capacity workspace or a premium backed or a fabric backed workspace. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to go to workspace settings. Okay, I'm going to go to workspace settings. right? And here I'm going to see, I'm going to be able to do, so I'm going to see Git integration. I'll click on this. I'm going to click on Git integration, right? And now you see support for Azure DevOps and you see support for GitHub, okay? You're going to see support for DevOps and you see support for GitHub. For today's demo, we are going to be primarily focusing on GitHub. We're not going to do much. Of course, everything we'll do in GitHub is also supported in DevOps, but GitHub will be more, we cannot replicate it. So I'm going to be going for GitHub. Now, you may notice that your GitHub is grayed out in your own. You can, if you can quickly check your tenants. You may, if you've not done this integration before, you may notice that the GitHub is grayed out and DevOps is not. So if this is the case, all you need to do is you now need an admin. Of course, if you are using a developer account, you should be able to have access to the admin portal. But if not, you may then need to get your admin to turn it on. So if I go to the admin portal, the Power BI admin portal, I'm just going to search for Git. Okay. Now there's this third, this one that says users can export workspace. No, that's not it. That's not it. Sorry. Yes, users can sync workspace items with GitHub repository. You notice that this is currently disabled, so you have to enable it. Okay, so if this is disabled, you have to enable it. So once you enable it, I'm going to go back to you enable it and you apply. So that should also make the GitHub also accessible. Okay, so I'm going to go to workspace settings. All right, and I'm going to go back to workspace settings and I'm going to click on Git integration. So now here I have GitHub. Okay, so the next thing is for me to connect my GitHub account. I already did this, but I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to click on add account. Okay, now this add account is going to ask me to pass in my to put in a display name. This display name is just something that I'm just going to call this Fabric for GitHub. Okay, that's just a random name you choose. Now, the next thing is you're going to have to pass in a personal access token and the repository URL, right? So this is where we need to cross over to GitHub now for us to get the personal access token and the repository URL. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my GitHub screen right now. So give me a moment. Let me just do that. For the purpose of this exercise, I previously created a I created a repository for this, but I may have to create a new one. Okay, so I created a workspace called Fabric Git integration, but let's just create a repository called Fabric Git. But let's create a new one. Let's create a new one together. So I'm going to just create a new. I'm going to create a new. I'm going to create a new repo. Okay, just so that we can all appreciate the. So I'm going to come to repositories, and I'm going to click on create a new repository. Okay, so Stevie said I lost you on the part where GitHub was activated. We've not activated it yet. We only switched Windows. So let me go back. So this is where we are, right? We created the workspace, which is our Fabric Saturday workspace. If you already have a workspace you want to integrate, please, fine, just keep it. So you don't need to create a new workspace. Just keep your workspace. But for demo purpose, I'll say that, okay, create a new workspace. But if you currently have a demo workspace that you work with and you want to integrate that to GitHub, yeah, so you can use that. So once you have this workspace, you are going to you are going to go to workspace settings. Okay, then from workspace settings, you are going to see Git integration. Okay, 1 second. So Git integration. So now I'm going to select GitHub. You can see here you have the option to go for Azure DevOps, or you have the option to go for GitHub. All right, so I'm going for GitHub in this instance. If you have a DevOps account, please by all means you can go for that as well. So now I'm going to go to add account. All right, so I want to add a GitHub account. Okay, so let me see if I can delete the old one that is there. No, I can't delete this. Okay, so let's just add a new account. So now I said for this, we're going to choose Fabric for GitHub as our name. Right now, we have to pass in a personal access token and a report URL from GitHub. That's why I switched to GitHub. So let's create, I'm going to create a new repository for this. If you currently have also a repository that you are going to use, please keep that as well. So but for this scenario, I'm going to create a new repository, and I'm going to call my repository again Fabric for GitHub. Of course, the name does not have to match. Again, let me just say GitHub for Fabric now. So we don't think that the name mean anything. So I'm just going to call this GitHub for Fabric. Okay, so GitHub for Fabric is my name, and I can give this a description. So this is Git integration repo with Microsoft Fabric. You can make it public, you can make it private. Again, depend on how you want this to be. Let me just make this a private repo. You can add a README file, all right? And then we create our repository, okay? Again, if you currently have a repository, please by all means use the repository that you currently have, okay? So now I've created this repository, which is the GitHub for Fabric, and I have here my the repository. Now we are supposed to go get the code, the URL and the access token, but let's hold on with that for now. I want us to publish our content to this repo first. And that's because I'm going to tell you the reason for that later. Because Microsoft Fabric, the Git integration, will only read one folder at a time. So if we don't write all our data to a particular folder, we will not be able to integrate with Git at that level. Okay, so okay, I think we can even still do it. We can do it. I don't think it matters. But let's just go ahead with the way this is planned. So for now, let's load all our, before we do the integration, we're going to load our data or copy our data into our, or sync our data with Git, okay? So this is where I now need to, from here, I need to clone my repository. Again, we are all Git experts, right? So, and there are different ways. There's no single way to do this, right? We can all do these different ways that we want. All right. So let me also pause here. Right? Let me pause here. Let's go back to Power BI desktop. This is the report I'm trying to do Git integration on, right? So let me save this. I'm going to go to File, all right? And I'm going to do Save As. Okay, I'm going to browse this device, and I'm going to create a new the folder or the repository where I want this to be. So let me create a new. I want to save my file, and I'm going to call this folder again. Let's just call it Van Asdel Git. Okay. So this is V, yeah, this is this folder here, and I'm going to save this file. You see, if I want to save this file, I'm going to save this as a PBIP file. You remember what I said, that you have your PBIX file. I mean, all of us know that the Power BI file is a PBIX file. Then you have your PBIT file, which is the Power BI template file. Then you have the PBIP, which is the Power BI project file. Okay, so this file, for you to perform Git integration on it, it has to be a PBIP file. Okay, so I'm going to save this. All right, I'm going to save this. And once it's saved, let me go check out the, let's now check out that file or the folder or the file we saved. So I'm going to navigate to documents and I'm going to come to Van Hasdel Git. Okay, so this is it. When I saved that file as a Git, let me show you. Let me go back. I don't know if you can see my screen. So when I saved this, it saved different file types. So you can see the report, you can see the semantic model, you can see the Git ignore, you can also see the Van Hasdel sales report. All right. For that particular report. Okay, now one thing also is that we now know that, like I mentioned, we can programmatically make changes to that report file that we have. Right, we can programmatically make changes to that report file because some of the definition or the report definitions are now expressed as JSON files. Okay, that of course can now that we can use version control on. For example, if I open the report, this report, which is a JSON file, you see here that I have the definition of that report, the configuration, the themes that are being used, the report packages, the names, the background, the logo that is being used, and so on and so forth. And I can make changes right from here. You can see that this is calling the theme, the base theme that is in this location. So you can see a base theme in this location, and this is the name of the theme that we are using. And I can also come in here and just make changes. So these are all the colors, the colors in my theme. Okay, so you can see the colors in my theme. You can see the font sizes I'm using, the type of font I'm using, which is DIN. I'm also using Sego UI semi bold and so on and so forth. And right, without even doing any, without even integrating to Microsoft Fabric, I can make changes to all of these from here, and these changes is going to reflect in, or these changes are going to reflect in my report. But that's not the purpose of our call today. Our purpose um, is to do the integration with Microsoft Fabric. Okay, now let's go back. So this is where we are. Now remember what I said that sorry, let me reduce this. Let me reduce this. I want this to be on a single line. To view small icon, small icons. Okay, so what I want to then do now is I want this folder, I want all of these files inside one folder, because like I said, Microsoft Fabric can only integrate or connect to one folder. All right, one folder at a time. So if I just connect to this Van Hasdel Git, it will only pick one of these folders. So what I'm going to do is to create another folder within this. Again, there may be another workaround, another way to do this, but this is the way I've found to make it work. So my I can call my new folder, let me just call it Van Master. Okay, Van Master is what I'm going to call my folder. So I'm now going to move all of these other files. I'm going to move it inside this particular folder called Van Master. Okay, so I have one folder, Van Master, within the Van Hasdel Git, and that is what is hosting all my other files. Okay, so we are good here. So this is our file. This is this Van Hasdel Git is going to be the folder we are going to be working with from Git perspective. Okay, now let's go back to GitHub. Okay, so I'm back here now. The next thing I want to do is to clone this my repository locally. Okay, Again, there are different ways to do this, right? You can start from the PC, right? You can initiate a new repository from your local PC and initiate that on GitHub. You can decide to create a repository first from GitHub and clone it to your PC. There are different ways to do this. Some people prefer to use the GitHub desktop. All right. Some people prefer to use the Git command line. All right. But any way you go about it, it's it's fine. It depends on, this is based on personal preference at this point. There's no single way to go about it. Okay. So now let's now start from cloning the Git repository. So you are going to need Git to be installed on your PC. All right. And how best to know if you have Git installed? If you just open your command prompt and you type Git. All right. So it tells you that, you get some of response that Git is installed. If you get the response that I think you get something around Git is not a recognizable something, at least you know that you don't have Git installed. So what do? You need to install Git. Okay. How do you do that on your system? You can go to this link, which I'm going to drop in the chat. All right. You can go to this link. What's wrong with this? Copy. Let me see. Okay. Okay, let's just do the old-fashioned way. Download Git. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. Looks like the link I have isn't working. Oh, I think this is due to my internet. Apologies for that. Or let me just drop the link in the chat. If you're able to use that link, very fine. Let me know. This may be my personal. The page is not even loading fully. Let me see if I have to switch my internet again. One moment, please. So yeah, I'm back. So let me copy that link again, the link I pasted in the chat. And let's see. Okay, so here we see that link is actually working. So that's the link to download Git. So if you download, you can download the 64 bits, 32 bit, depend on your system. So you download this, you install it, and that's all. It's simple. It's a very simple process. Now, once you download that, let me close this, and you search for Git. So once you get the response of your Git command or Git bash, that means that you have this installed. So I prefer to work from the Git command line, right? You can prefer, some other persons prefer to work from GitHub desktop. So if you have some ideas around this, please use what is best suited for you. For example, what the action we want to perform now is to clone that Git repository we created in Microsoft in GitHub. So some other persons can come to their Git and click on add. You may want to clone a particular repository. So here you can see if you want to clone this repository, you go to, you can select where is the repo I created. Let me check it out. The repo I created is GitHub for Fabric, okay? And you can pass it in here, all right, and just clone, all right? So this is how some others prefer to work. Personally, I prefer to use the git command line. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to navigate to, on my own end, navigate to this folder. Okay, I'm going to copy this. I want to navigate to this folder. So I'm going to say cd, which is to change my current directory to the Van Hasdel Git folder. All right. So here you see that I've navigated to that part. So the next thing is I want to clone that my Git repository. So I'm just going to say git clone, right? I want to clone this repository. So I'll come back in here. I'll copy the code. So you go back to GitHub while you are in that repository. Go to code. Can you all still see my screen, please? Can someone confirm they can still see my screen?
Yes, Fatai, you can see your screen.
Okay, all right, thank you. So you Olayemi, you may want to maybe leave and maybe what is affecting me is affecting you too. You may want to leave and rejoin. So you go to code, you copy your again, I'm not sure if I'm not sure the level of level at which we are as to Git. So that's why I'm taking this back to the basics. I would want to believe that some of us are pretty much advanced. So please forgive me if this sounds too elementary, just to cut across and carry everybody along. We mostly all know how to clone GitHub repository and so on and so forth. But so please forgive me if I'm taking us back. So I'm running a git clone. I want to clone that repo, right? And you can notice that I'm within the Van Hasdel Git folder before, and that's where I want to clone that repo into. So, excuse me. So it's telling me now that I've cloned it. All right. So let me check. Let me check. So yeah, this is the Van Hasdel Git now, and this is the GitHub for this is the GitHub for Fabric. This is the GitHub for Fabric repo. Okay. So you can see this has been cloned. Now I'm going to make the changes into this my folder. So forgive me again, the folder I created initially, which is the Van Master, right? We want to cut that and put it within within this folder. Okay. So if you've not done this before, what you can just do is just save your PBIP file directly into this folder, which is the Van Master. All right. So this is how this should have been. We should have created this repo, clone the repo, which is this GitHub for Fabric, and then save our file into a particular folder within this repository. Okay. So now I'm going to then navigate to this new to my repo now. So I'm going to change my directory. So my directory is currently at Van Hasdel Git. So I'm going to change that directory to this, which is the Git. I'm going to drop some of these Git commands in the chat. So I'm going to say current directory and just paste my file path in here. So now I've changed my file path to the Git repo. So my Git repo is the GitHub for Fabric repo. Okay, so now I've done this. The next thing that someone may want to do is you don't want to be working on the main branch. So currently this is the main branch. If I do git status, all right, so it tells me that your branch is up to date with the original main. So I'm currently in the main branch, and for source control, you don't want to be working from the main branch. You want to create a local branch for yourself. I mean, because that is what is that is the ideal thing to do. So I want to create a I want to check out a branch. So I'm going to run the command git checkout b, git checkout -b, and I'm going to put in the name of the branch that I'm creating. So I'm going to call this branch Felsh local. Okay, so I'm creating a git checkout B for my local branch. Okay, so now this tells me that I've switched to a new branch. So all my development for my local PC is going to be done on the Felsh local. Then once I'm done, I can then push that to the to the main branch. So now I'm currently on the GitHub for Fabric, and I've switched to my first local. Now I want to add my changes. You can see that I've made changes. When we cloned this repository, it was just a GitHub for Fabric, and it was only the README file that was there. Now we've added the van master file, which contained that Power BI report, right, or Power BI project file that we are working with. So now, how do we sync these changes back to GitHub, and how do we sync it back to Fabric? That's the next thing that we want to do right now. So I'm going to run a git command. I have all of these git command here, by the way. I'm going to drop it in the chat. I'm going to run a git add period. So which means what I'm doing right here is to add all the changes that I've made, all right, or to state the changes that I've made in that git repository. Okay, so here, so I've added that. It's of course giving me a warning that in the working copy of van blah 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 blah, LF will be replaced by CRLF the next time git touches it. That's fine. I'm now going to run. Now I've added all my files. I'm going to run a git commit. Okay, so I'm going to commit my changes. Okay, I'm going to commit my changes. So I'm going to run the command git commit m, and I'm going to pass in notes, right, of what I did. So I moved all my, sorry, let's just add a new note. Added the Van Hasdel PBIP file into the, what's the name of that folder again? Into the Van Master folder. Okay, Van Master folder. All right. So this is what I'm going to run now. So I'm committing my changes. All right. So that's running, and yeah, it's going to run, and yeah, that's successful. It has added all of my changes. Now, if I want to know what is the status, I can run a git status at this point. So it says that, okay, I've committed all my changes. Now the next thing is I can push my I can push the changes that I made or that I've made in this repository. Don't forget that I'm still working in the local PC. I want to then push my changes to GitHub. Okay, so I'm going to run a git push, git push u to origin, and I'm also passing my the branch. So I'm pushing from this branch. Okay, so that's going to take some time. In the meantime, let me drop those git commands that I just ran. Let me drop them in the chat. Sorry, one moment. Comment on what changed. All right. Local branch name. Branch name. Local branch name. Okay. Yes. So let me do this. So I've just dropped all the git commands that I ran. I've just dropped them in the chat. Please feel free to look at it. Okay, so I have pushed my changes. All right, now let's confirm if my changes have reflected. Okay, now immediately I switch back to GitHub. Can you see? I just got a notification that First Local has recently pushed as we sent pushes 2 seconds ago. So I need to compare and create a pull request. Again, it may not be the crash course on Git and GitHub. So please, if you need to take a crash course on Git and GitHub, there's so many resources, or there's so much resources online that you can look through. I can also drop some of them in the chat. All right. So again, this course is not fundamentally teaching Git. So please forgive me if I'm skipping some things. So now I'm going to compare and create this pull request. So now this is my pull request. I've added the Van Hazel PBIP file into the Van Hazel master. I'm going to create a pull request. Okay. So I can add a comment. All right. So it's telling me that there's no conflict. All right. And that thing can pull confidently. I can add a comment. Van master added. Okay. Let me comment it, and I can merge the pull. I can confirm the merge. Okay. So it says that added the Van Hazel PBI into the master van folder. So now I've merged. So now if I go to the main branch, remember that I was working in the first local branch. So now you see that my van master is now sitting in the main branch. Okay. If we're good, thumbs up. Have I lost anyone? Have I lost anyone? Have I lost anyone? Any clarity that is needed before I proceed? I know that that's a lot. So let me recap what I did. Okay. We started from this file. We saved it as a PBIP file. Okay. And we saved it into a folder. Let's assume when we started, we saved it into this Van Hazel Git file or Git folder. Okay. Now, the next thing was we created a repository from GitHub, right? And we cloned that repository to our local PC because we want to make some changes and some development on the local front. When we made that, we saved those changes into the cloned repository, which is the van master. Okay. So we use some Git commands to create, to navigate to the directory, to clone the GitHub repo. We check out a branch, which means that we created a branch. Then we added the changes that we have made, we committed it, and also we then pushed our changes. All of these things that I've done programmatically can also be done from if you download the GitHub desktop, you can also do all of this without writing a single code. But I don't use GitHub desktop much, right? So that's why I couldn't talk much about it. But if you go to, if you see this same thing I just did was first, we want to clone a repository, all right? And the repository we wanted to clone is the GitHub for Fabric repo, all right? And we need to choose a local path, which is where that current directory, which is where it comes in. So it has to be the Van Hazel Git, all right? So if we select this folder, so everything I've done with those Git command can also be done here. So you can see this folder contains file. Git can only clone to empty folders. So you see, you can also clone this using the GitHub desktop. How do you download GitHub desktop again? I think you can do that from where? Oh, so here, open with GitHub desktop. So you can open this particular repo with GitHub desktop, and instead of writing those Git commands, you can also use the GitHub, the graphical user interface to navigate. Okay, so we are here. The bottom line is that we now have our van master synced here. Now let's go back to the original place. Don't forget where we started from. Where we started from was where we wanted to, let me see, where is my screen? We had a screen where okay, is this one? Where we wanted to integrate to the, okay, let me use this one. Yes, thank you, Francis. So in case you don't follow the git command, you can most definitely use the GitHub desktop, just in case you're not familiar with the git commands. You can use the GitHub desktop. So now I'm trying to open up. I'm going back to my Microsoft Fabric workspace now. Okay, remember that where we left off was when we wanted to integrate. Now we've done the first leg of integrating our local PC to the to GitHub, right? The next thing is we will now want to integrate GitHub to Microsoft Fabric. Okay, so let's see. My internet is struggling again. Whether he likes it or not, we're going to do this. Don't worry. Okay, so this is it here. So remember, this our workspace. Where we left off was, well, now we're back to the Fabric portal. Git integration, GitHub, add account. We just want to add Fabric for GitHub, Now we want to get our personal access token and also the repository URL. So let's go back to GitHub now. Okay, GitHub. Now, how do we get our access token? You're going to click on your profile name at the top. You're going to go to settings. Okay, you're going to go to developer settings. Okay, now you see personal access tokens, right? You're going to click on, you can choose any one of the fine grain tokens or the token classic, but for this demo we are going to go with the fine grained tokens. Okay, I have one here already, so I'm going to generate a new token. All right, I'm going to generate a new token. Let me add my password. Okay, now what is the name I want to give my token? I'm going to call this Fabric Saturday token. Okay, Fabric Saturday token. The resource owner is myself, which is Fatai. Now expiration, you're going to set you can set an expiration for this token. Do you want it to last for 30 days? Do you want it to last for 60 days, 90 days, or you want to create a custom? In my own case, I'm just going to set 90 days, and I can add a description: token for Fabric Saturday demo. Okay, now do you want to make this repository public or up repository or only selected repository? Again, we have to use the least privilege approach. All right, so let's go for only select repository, so which means that we only want to tie this token to that particular to one particular repository. Okay, so I'm going to search here for the repository. So this is the GitHub for Fabric repository. All right, this is it. So I've selected the repository that I'm tying that to. Now let's go to repository permissions. There are two things you need to set here. One moment, please. There's one major one that you need to set. Yeah, this one. Let me just confirm. Let me confirm. Let me confirm content. Yes, content. So this content, this is primarily what we need to grant access. Do you want it to be a read-only access, or you want it to be a read and write? Read-only means that this token would only allow Microsoft Fabric to read files from GitHub, to not be able to write back. Read and write means that Fabric can read and can also write back using this token. Okay, so you can see I've set that permission. Now I can generate this token. Okay, so I've generated the token. All right, so it says make sure to copy blah 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 blah. So I'm going to copy this token. All right, now I'm going to head back to my I'm going to head back to my Fabric environment, and I'm going to pass in the token here. Okay, that's my token. The next thing is my repository URL, which is the URL of that Fabric of that GitHub repo. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. Okay, so this is the URL. Okay, I'm going to copy this URL, which is the URL of my repo, and I'm going to paste that within Fabric. No, it says invalid. Let me quickly check. I think I've done something wrong. So I'm just going to go back to the origin. Yes, so no need for that main branch. So just the base URL. Okay, so this is it. We've put in our display name, we've gotten our access token, and we've passed in the repository URL. So I'm going to click on add. So it's going to add that account. So you see Fabric for GitHub has been added. All right, and the same way you manage this connection is the same way you manage gateways, another connection. So if you go over to connections and gateways, let me quickly show you manage connection and gateways within Fabric. You're also going to see this Fabric for GitHub there, just in case your token expires and you want to change that token, or you want to edit certain things. All right, so it's the same way you would change your connections and the gateways within Microsoft Fabric is the same way. So if you see, you can see Fabric for GitHub here. All right, I can edit it here and maybe make changes. Okay, so you see this is Fabric for GitHub, and you can change the authentication, and you can change the token. Let's say that token expires and you want to change the token, you can do that from here. Okay, now let's go back. Now we've connected. So I'm going to click on Fabric for GitHub and I'm going to connect. Okay, so here I've done that. Fabric for GitHub, you can see the provider is GitHub, and I've done this connection. Now the next thing is what do I want to do? I want to create the repository URL. I want to create a branch for Fabric as well. Don't forget, we are going to be making changes don't forget, we're going to be making changes in Microsoft Fabric as well. So let me create a new branch for Fabric, and I'm going to call this branch Fab branch. I'm going to call this branch Fab branch, and I want to create from the main, okay, Fabric branch. So which means that any changes I make from Fabric branch is going to be written to the main and the local, as the case may be. So I'm going to create this. Okay, now this part is very important. You see this Git folder, all right? This part is where you now map which folder do you want, because if you just leave this blank, Microsoft Fabric will not pick all, or will not sync all the files in your GitHub. You need to map it to a particular folder, which was why, remember initially where I mentioned that all your files should be saved in one folder. So that way we can just pass in this van master folder, and that is the only folder that Fabric workspace. So the limitation is that the workspace can only sync with one folder at a time. So if you just leave all the files in the root folder, it will only pick maybe one or not pick anything. That's why we're putting all of this in a folder. Okay, so I'm going to copy the name of that folder and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so we're calling this a fab branch, and this is the folder that we want to sync, the van master folder. So I'm going to say connect and sync. Okay, so it says this is connected. All right, and now let's see what goes on. You can now see there's a source control icon at the top of your screen, which shows that this workspace now supports source control. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you're seeing what is happening. Microsoft Fabric is now pulling the changes, or is syncing the changes from that our Git repository. Is pulling both the report file and also the semantic model. If you have pipelines, if you have Spark notebook and so on and so forth, all of that is going to be pulled natively inside Microsoft Fabric. All right, now it doesn't stop here. This is only one part. So if you click on source control now, you can see that there are no zero changing, which means that your repo is your Fabric is now in sync with both the GitHub and also your desktop, which means that at this stage now, there's now a three-way sync. Any change that is being made locally or that is being made in GitHub, that is being made in Fabric, everybody can now write data and we can now do version control. Now, let me show you what I mean. Before then, I'm going to open up this report. Let me show you. I'm going to open the report. Open. Okay, let me open the report. You will see that it is only the report definitions that are synced into the Fabric environment. The data set is not synced. Okay, now what we need to do is to head over and map the semantic model, all right, to or add this or connect the semantic model to the source. So if I come in here and I go to settings, all right, and I go to of course my gateway is running because this is a local data source. Now I'm going to go to data source credentials. All right, so you see this is trying to sync. Now I've been able to sync. If you need to edit the credentials for my 3 data sources, international sales, sales, and also BI dimensions, you can do that. All right, once this is done, I'm going to head over back to my workspace and I can maybe trigger a refresh on the semantic model. Right, once that is done, I can go back into my report right now and let's see if I refresh this, is going to sync the data as well. All right, we already have the report definition. We just need to make the data sync as well. Okay, nothing is happening yet. Let me see here as well. So we have the report definition. We don't have data. Okay, this may take a couple minutes to sync, but at the same time, let me just quickly double check. Okay, this is refreshing, by the way. This is refreshing. Okay, so we can wait a couple of minutes for this semantic model to refresh. All right, we can wait a couple of minutes for this semantic model to refresh, and we should have our report our data that is sitting within the report. Do we have any questions so far? You can please drop it in the chat. I can answer your question. I want to just show you. So the next thing I want to do now is to show that we have loaded the data into the report. Now we are now going to make changes from the We're going to make changes from Microsoft Fabric. We'll then see if that changes will be pulled to GitHub and if we can also pull that change locally. Okay, right? That way, that whole triage is complete. It means that changes can happen from anywhere. And again, okay, what else? What I can also do is let me also add a data flow. While this is loading, I'm just going to add a data flow gen 2. I don't have any cloud data sources. Okay, I'll just do anything really. Let me sync to the data factory experience. Okay, let me sync to the data factory. So let me click on data flow gen 2. All right, I want to show that not only Power BI is supported, data flow is, all the other persona and artifacts and workloads within Microsoft Fabric are supported. This internet wants to show me, but no, we'll give it aura for aura. So let me try to, oops, I cannot upload a file. Let me see. I'm using my trial account, so I'm just going to look for an Excel file and see if I can just quickly create a sample data flow info. One moment, properties. Okay, so I want to copy this. I'm not sure if this would, if I can access this data source. Well, let's try it. So create a new connection. My gateway should be seen. Is not seeing my gateway. Okay, let me use an online data source. Since if Excel is not working, let me just use a web. I'm just going to use a web data source. That should pretty much be simple. So I'm just going to look for richest man by country, whatever. I just want to see a Wikipedia link, list of countries and numbers of billionaires. Okay, let's try this. So I'm going to sync this back into, let's try this. Web page. Fabric says. Okay, let me use the web API. Nobody they use poor man. How do you search for poor men, which top poor men in the world? How do you do that? So I want to create a new connection. I'm going to go to next. So I just want to load any random data. I just want to create a data flow. It doesn't matter what is in there. So the URL you entered is HTML source. If you would like to use it, please use the web page connector. Why is it still doing this? I just need to load any data. Let me see. Web URL is asking me I need a gateway to the web page. Oh, I can even just create a blank query. Why am I even stressing myself? Okay, all right, I've done this. Let's see if this will load. Okay.
I can just use a blank query, or you can quickly just create a 3-column table or something.
Yes. Let me just use and let me just do this. I'm just stressing myself unnecessarily. So I'm just going to say billionaires by country. So Francis.
I was going to say that I should put my name. I'm a billionaire, please.
It's worth 10 billion, $10 billion,
In
and
tapping, tap.
is what I mean. For benefit of this, let's just use this guy. Let's just use these two guys. I'm just going to say billionaire and the net worth. Okay, the billionaire and the net worth. So okay, all right. So I'm going to publish this. Just load, please. Yes, let me just publish. I didn't add a destination. Maybe I should. I did not add a destination. Which one did I create first? I'm not even sure which one is loading now. I think those two did, the first two didn't work. So I'm going to delete data flow 3. I'm going to delete data flow. Okay. Git is telling me it's unsupported. That's interesting. But if I mean, the whole point is when I check the source control, I don't know if you can see that now I have 2 items that I can commit in here. Okay, which means I've made 2 changes that I need to push to my main branch. Okay, but that's not the I think this has finished refreshing. So let's quickly check our reports. Let's check our Power BI report. Let me refresh this page. Check our Power BI reports and I'll refresh the page. Beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing. So we connected the semantic model, we refreshed the semantic model, and now our data is now showing. So what that simply tells you is that even when you do the sync from GitHub, it loads the semantic model, but there's no data in it. So you have to go do the connection, and I mean just the first time, and that would automatically load. Okay. So now let's go back to our workspace. So now I'm back in our workspace. All right. So we have these two that are synced. Now the next thing I want to do is let's make changes to this report as well. I'm just going to create a new, I'm going to edit this report in the fabric. All right. I'm going to create a new page. And I am going to add a very beautiful report, a very beautiful visual, which is a donut. And I'm going to put in all the country and the quantity or their revenue. No, this is not beautiful enough. I want to make this really beautiful. So I'm going to put a product. I love this. This is the most beautiful report I've seen. So I'm going to call this most beautiful. Okay. And I'm going to save these changes. I hope you can all agree with me that this is the finest visual we've ever seen, right? If you don't agree, please forever hold your peace. Now, I've made changes to that report. Let's check something out. Can you see? I don't know if you can all see this. When I make changes to that report, it tells me that I now have an uncommitted change that I have made. All right. I have an uncommitted change that I have made in that particular report. And if you go to source control, I have 3 new items, all right, that I have made. Okay. So what do I need to do? Let me commit these 3 items and I push it to the. So I'm currently in the Fab branch, don't forget, which is the Fabric branch. So I'm going to commit these changes. Okay. I'm going to commit the changes. So that is committing. Don't forget, I've made some changes. One of those changes, I added a most beautiful page in the Power BI, and I also created a data flow. Okay, so this is currently committing. So now you see we have committed those 3 changes, and our source control, there's no longer there's nothing here again. What is the next thing to do? Let's go to our GitHub. Okay, now can you see, ladies and gentlemen, the moment I come back to GitHub, it tells me that Fab branch has had 2 recent pushes. Why am I speaking? Fab branch had recent pushes 2 seconds ago. So what do? Compare and pull. So I want to merge I want to pull the changes from the Fab branch and pull it back into the main branch. So what is the description? I added most beautiful page and data flow. I added most beautiful and I added data flow. So let's create a pull request. So we are trying to merge our changes now. So this is going to check for conflict. There's no conflict. So we're going to merge and we're going to confirm that merge. Okay. So we'll go back to our main branch and let's see. Okay. So now I'm back in my van master main. So you see here that can you see data flow staging lakehouse, the data flow staging warehouse as well. These 2 items have now been added, and I can see the XMLA endpoint, the export script version, the data flow staging warehouse project, and also the platform. All of these are JSON files or text files that we can now programmatically interact with. Again, the purpose of this is not to edit or to programmatically interact, but I mean just to tell you that staging is now possible on this. So you can see I have the staging lakehouse, I have the staging warehouse. So okay, we have done this from GitHub. Don't forget, another person is now working locally. So let's say Fatai was the one that published this first change. Now Francis now wants to pull the latest changes, or he wants to make his own change in Fabric. Okay, so what is going to happen? I'm going to close this without saving, by the way. So now let me go back to my Git. Okay, I'm going to come back to my Git command. Let me check Git status. I want to see what is the status of my what is the status. So this one says your branch is up to date with the origin first local, but I don't want to check the origin. I want to compare that to I want to check the main branch, if I'm behind or if I am up to date with the main branch. Sorry, 1 second. So let me run this. So it tells me that I have a 20 reuse. I'm trying to check my status. I've forgotten what this is. So let me check my Git status again. Git status should tell me that there are new changes in the main branch for me to pull. Aha. So here I ran the, forgive me if you cannot see, my, if it's not so legible. So I ran a git difference between origin main. Now it tells me that these are some of the changes, all right, from the main, all right, that I don't have in my local branch. Okay. So you see, my difference is I have a, so it's telling me that let me just show you everything. All right, let me show everything. It says that I have a new van master. I have a data flow staging warehouse, and these are all the new changes. I also have a data flow staging warehouse. I'm checking the difference between my local branch. Again, I don't want to bore you with all of this, so I'm just going to get to the end of all this. All right. One moment. Sorry. I want this to run to the end. Let me skip. Yeah, so now we are back here. So what is the next thing for me to do? I want to pull, right? I want to pull the changes in that my main. I want to pull it to my local. I want to pull it to my local, to my branch. Okay. Sorry, one moment. Okay. So the next thing is to pull the changes from my main branch. So you see here that I said git pull origin main. So now I see I have pulled all the changes, all right, from the main branch into my local branch. So what is the next thing to do, ladies and gentlemen? I can check my local folder. Where is it? I can check my local folder. Remember my van has Dell, which is this guy. Let's check if those changes are here already. So GitHub for Fabric, Van Master, and you see, without even checking anything, I now have the staging warehouse, the staging lake house are now here. They weren't here before. Now let's check the report, which is the one that we can easily relate to. Okay, let's quickly check um, my report and see if I have my most beautiful report, if I have it synced already. Okay. We also have to know that sometimes this doesn't sync immediately. All right. I think those are some of the limitations that were captured on the website. So if you don't see this show up, maybe after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or you can always just refresh, and it's definitely going to show up. So that there may be some delay, especially on the PBIP end. Oh, but voila, ladies and gentlemen, Francis has pulled his own local branch, and you can see something. The most beautiful page is now here. Okay, even though Francis is still working on this report, all right, it does not impact anything from pulling that changes. So you can see this is now my Power BI desktop, and I've been able to pull the most beautiful visual and report that you've ever seen in this life. I've been able to pull it also to my local PC. And not only did I pull the report, I also pulled the latest changes that were made from Fabric as regard the lakehouse and the warehouse. What have we done today in summary? What we have done is to show um, how we can integrate Microsoft Fabric, or how we can do source control in Microsoft Fabric. And it gets better. It doesn't stop here. Don't forget, we can also use Git to also work with deployment pipelines. Remember, if you've worked with deployment pipeline within Power BI before, you have a dev, you have a test, you have a prod. You want to push changes. You can also programmatically push these changes from dev to test to prod, while you're having different developers work on different aspects of your project. And it has never gotten better than this. So the gone are those days of siloed reporting and siloed data analytics tasks being done in Fabric. Right now, multiple personas, multiple users, multiple data experts can work collaboratively on a data analytics project, from warehouse to lake house to data flow to report, to semantic model, and so on and so forth. All of these are now supported from Git perspective. And you can see here that now I don't have anything to pull. I don't have anything to commit. If I also publish another change, if I also make another change to I mean, let's just do it for good measure. If I also have something in here, let's just say I just look at it and change my mind and no, bro, like this cannot be the most beautiful report in the world. So I'm going to delete it, right? And I'll say, okay, bye-bye to most beautiful, even though some people are jealous, but I mean, it's fine. So bye-bye to the most beautiful report. So I've deleted the most beautiful. I'm going to go back in here to the command line. I'm going to do git add. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do git commit. I'm going to commit that changes, and I'm just going to say deleted most beautiful. Deleted most beautiful. Okay. What did I do? Oh, sorry. Git commit, not dit. Dit commit deleted most beautiful. Okay, one file change, one insertion, 22 deletions. Now I want to push, so I can push. So I'm going to come here and say git push u origin, and I think my is Felch local. The name of my branch is Felch local. So I'm going to do that push. All right, so that is done. Let's check in on our friend in GitHub. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to the main so branch. I'm going to go to my Felch local. Okay, so this tells me that this is one commit ahead of main. So this branch is one commit ahead of main. So I'm going to click on that. It says this is able to merge. There's no conflicts. Okay, so I'm going to create a pull request, and I'm just going to say deleted most beautiful. Deleted most beautiful, and I'm going to create that pull request. Okay, let's see. That is done. I'm going to merge it. Confirm merge. Okay, that's done. Now let's check on our friend in Fabric. Okay, this is going to take a couple seconds, and you're going to see the source control show up here. Oh, I think by the way, we also need to sync. Oh, we also need to since this is not the main branch, right? We also need to pull that change. Okay, apologies for that, but I know we can set it up. I've not fully explored that. We can set it up whereby that is synced directly to the main, but again, I've not really explored. So I'm just going to go to the fab branch, and I'm going to try to pull the is 3 commits behind main. So I'm going to pull the deleted most beautiful. I'm going to pull the latest changes, okay, into my Fabric branch. Okay, again, this would work because you don't want changes to automatically sync, especially if that's your prod environment. All right, but if that's your dev, maybe you can sync the dev directly. But again, that it may not be best practice to sync it directly to main. So it's still okay to have it as a branch. Okay, that way we can always manage and control what is being done. Okay, so I think I've merged that. So let's go back to Fabric and let's see what's up. So I'm going to wait a couple seconds. Let me refresh just to make it faster. You see, so now it tells me you have pending updates from Git. We recommend you update these incoming changes and then continue working. So you can see I have this update. I've made changes to the Van Asdel sales report V. So let me update all. Okay, don't forget that before my update, I have a most beautiful the latest version in the my fabric is the one that has the most beautiful. All right, and if I go back in here, so it tells me that that update has been made. If I go back in here now and I check, the most beautiful page is now gone. Can you see? Subsidy, sorry, the most beautiful page is gone. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the end of my presentation today. Thank you very much for listening. Francis, back to you.
Wow. That's a very wonderful session presented to us by Fatai. Thank you so much. I learned a lot of things myself, and I'm grateful for having you. So I think we have a number of questions. Yeah, okay, we have one question in the chat, and I think someone was also trying to raise his hand. So, follow on show, can you come off mute and ask your question? Can you hear me, Fatai?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think maybe it was raised out of mistake, but we have one question in the chat. The person is asking that, so I can only make updates on the Power BI server or service. I'm not sure this question is clear enough.
So maybe it meant service. Let me just reply the way I know. If it meant Power BI reports, if it meant,
Okay, it meant
yeah,
service.
in the service, yes. The Power BI service is the same thing as the Fabric. If you're not using Fabric and what you are using is Power BI service, that will also work, but only for Power BI related files. You'll not be able to use Fabric related artifacts. However, you will need a premium a user license for you to be able to do that. You cannot do any of this with a pro license. It has to be the minimum a Power BI premium per user license.
Okay, thank you so much, Fatai. So thank you everyone for also being present today. And it's been a very wonderful session. I know that it's a lot of information to process at the same time, but we are going to make sure that this video recording is available on YouTube so that you can always go back to it and digest it accordingly. So either you are following through with the Git commands or you prefer to use your GitHub desktop application, anyone is fine. Just make sure that you know how to get your Git integration done around Microsoft Fabric. So before we call it a day, I think Follow on Show is now back now. So you can come up mute and ask your question.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. Well, my hand was actually raised mistakenly before, but I know because you called me. So, yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Fatai. Yeah, I really appreciate that wonderful section. But, well, my question is around, I think in your first presentation, you mentioned that DCID and, the integration won't be able to work with, I just want to get a confirmation. You said it won't be able to work with analysis service, right? Because I know most organizations works around analysis service. And I think I remember there was a time that I was working with a colleague of mine, using analysis service, and we want to do something exactly like this before in the introduction of Fabric, and we couldn't achieve something like this. But I don't know, is there still going to be a way maybe this integration can work around maybe analysis service and some other service that Microsoft offers?
I'm going to drop this. Thank you very much for that question. I'm going to drop the documentation in the chat. I think, yes, it doesn't work with analysis service. Yeah, branching and limitation. Control F. Let me just search for analysis service. Power BI dataset connected to analysis services aren't supported at this time. Okay, so maybe it's excuse me. Maybe it's going to come in the future, or you can also go to the, you can also, put it in the, what's that site called, Francis, where ideas, you can put it in ideas on Microsoft.com.
Okay. I'll do that.
Maybe it can come. No, I don't mean you. I'm just saying, like, if it's a concern, we can put it in
Yes.
ideas on Microsoft.com. But if not, analysis service is not supported at this time.
It might even already be in the Fabric roadmap or something. So
Ideas
before
already,
you
yes.
put anything on ideas, just ensure that it's not already in the roadmap and it's for
Yeah.
future implementation. Yeah, thank you so much,
So
Fatai.
I've dropped 2 links to the documentation. In case you want to read more, you can do that. There's also a very good YouTube video I used to prepare for this course. I'm going to drop it also in the chat. That was done by Guy in a Cube, YouTube resource. Okay, please, you can, these are resources that you can use in order to learn and master this as well. I meant to type YouTube resource and I can't even delete this comment. But anyway, Francis, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fatai. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming. Thanks for impacting us with so much knowledge. And we do hope that when we invite you again in the future, next foreseeable future, actually, you will honor our invitation. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you also for attending. It's a very wonderful session. I enjoyed the session myself. It's always a pleasure listening to Fatai to come and impart us in the community. It's one of the real MVPs, if I can put it that way. So it's one of the real MVPs. So it's not everybody that is on Microsoft community as MVP, but there are some persons that they are the real MVPs. They are the powerhouse of those of us that are on the program actually. So thank you for time for coming. I really appreciate your time. So guys, I will see you again next month. So heads up, maybe somebody from Microsoft might be coming around next month to present since it's virtual. So how it goes, I'll be updating us in the community. So one of the top senior PM might be available for us next month, and then just keep the fire of the community burning. And then the date also will be communicated, looking at the fact that next month is Data Vest Africa, so that we don't have too much of activity in that period. So, all right, guys, thank you all for coming, and I will see you next month. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.